Angelo Bruno, the Philadelphia boss for more than 20 years, in his own home movies, never before shown outside his family circle. Born in Sicily in 1910, Bruno fulfilled the American dream. He started with a grocery store and ended up a millionaire. In his private life, he was devoted to his wife and family. He prided himself on being a patriotic American. Bruno always looked more like a grandfather than a godfather. The image of a happy family man helped to further Bruno's reputation as the Gentle Don, a title he earned in 1959 when he refused to kill a rival who was plotting to kill him. South Philadelphia was Angelo Bruno's home territory. Most people in this Italian neighborhood have no connection with organized crime, but this is where most members of the Philadelphia crime family were reared. Mike Chitwood also grew up here and knows all the city's mobsters, but he joined the Philadelphia police and became its most decorated cop.
You can't find anybody to say a bad word about him in the neighborhoods. Angelo Bruno, you can never find anybody to say a bad word about him. Because they always were, quote, nice to the people. Somebody needed help, they couldn't pay their gas bill, electric bill, whatever, these guys would pick up the tab for them. And Bruno was always gentle, non-violent in his approach to whatever he did. And on March the 21st, 1980, as he pulled up to his house, it was about 9:50 p.m., and the assailant, in all probability, was hidden behind the truck. And as the power window was operated by the driver of the automobile, John Stanfa, the assailant stepped from behind the parked automobile, put a shotgun, probably a sawed-off shotgun, to the back of his right ear, and blew Bruno away.
The shooting was gangland style. Angelo Bruno was shot once in the back of the head at point-blank range. It was a sudden death that left the reputed mob boss frozen, his mouth open as if to call for help, but no one would hear him.
The horror of Angelo Bruno's murder outside his own home is remembered by his daughter Jean.
My father was left in that car for hours, and people kept coming and coming. Finally, the people in the street started shouting, "Take him away, take him away." And they took him away. And I didn't show any emotion, because if I did, maybe some people were glad that he was dead. Evidently some people were, or they wouldn't have killed him.
Who do you think killed your father?
I can't say, because I'm not positive.
Do you think it was people within your community, or do you think it was, you presumably don't think it was the police, do you?
My father got to be too good for his own good. A new time was coming. A new time was coming. People were into drugs. People were turned on by rock stars and things like that. The time was coming, and my father was against it when there was a need for drugs, unfortunately. And my father was against this. And a lot of people wanted to make money, most likely. And they were dissatisfied because my father stuck to his beliefs. He didn't even like people around him who drank too much or gambled, things like that. And people misunderstood. And I think, naturally, some people, most of them are probably dead now. Some people wanted him out. Not out, I can't say out because that assumes that he was into something. But people who came to him for advice would always get turned down if it came to drugs. If somebody said, I'm sure, I'd like to go into this, I'm sure my father would say no.
The newspapers called him the godfather of Philadelphia, but to his neighbors, he was a good citizen.
He was a peaceful man. He wasn't a violent man.
How about you, ma'am?
Wonderful person. He couldn't be any better.
We all play numbers. We all go to the racetrack. You know what I mean? We all cheat a little bit. But this man didn't play narcotics, and that's why he's dead today.
Perhaps Bruno was killed because he opposed drugs. Perhaps younger men simply wanted to take over. Those who ordered his killing probably attended his funeral. The era of the gentle Don was over.
Do you think the violence will ever go away, the violence associated with this kind of business, the mafia?
I would hope so, but that's a hard thing to answer because I don't know that much about it. I would hope that it would go away. It's a sad thing, but I can't say. I certainly hope so. If there's a mafia, should I say? I don't want to be quoted as an authority on anything. I'm just, you know, if I were anybody else giving my opinion, I probably wouldn't have to worry about a story or anything like that. There was a lot of pain after he died that you felt sorry for him and you suffered it because you loved him so much, the whole family, but I wouldn't have traded him for the world.
Should the house of a former Philadelphia mafia boss become a city landmark? It's a question at the center of a debate ever since the South Philadelphia home of the notorious Angelo Bruno was nominated to the city's historical commission. WHYY's Bobby Allen reports.
Former mafia godfather Angelo Bruno, known as the Gentle Don, was gunned down in front of his South Philly home in the spring of 1980. And his daughter, Jeannie, has looked after the place ever since.
Look at my hair, my God. I usually put on makeup. Not that it matters, I'm 75.
She remembers her dad a little differently than most. He never cursed, he liked his macaroni al dente, and when she was little, the La Costa Nostra figure taught her how to play Happy Birthday on the piano in their vestibule.
I'm not saying he's a gangster, but I am saying you don't know how hard it is to keep people in line.
Recently, Jean Bruno received a piece of mail informing her that the architecturally unremarkable row home was nominated for a place on the city's historic register. Historian Celeste Morello submitted the application. She says the home is part of Philadelphia's heritage.
And it's an interesting story, and the history affects all of us.
Morello once sold real estate for Jean Bruno's late husband and has written a book about Angelo Bruno. She says the FBI's surveillance of the Gentle Don helped create modern corruption laws used to go after organized crime.
We're not out to give any kind of positive spin on anything that caused harm to people and made people suffer. We're trying to just use them as a way to educate.
The idea of historically highlighting the once infamous home has generated some pushback.
It's not necessary, and I don't see what it does for us in South Philadelphia. And it kind of stereotypes Italian Americans.
Former City Councilman Frank DeCicco says the history of the mob in South Philly is not something that should be celebrated. It's a legacy that he's personally had to combat.
I know the prejudice is. I mean, there are people who look at me and say, oh, you're one of them Italian guys from South Philly. You remember the mafia? That's the part that I think we need to get away from.
Other mafia-connected properties have been designated historic for having a distinctive architectural style, but Angelo Bruno's home, if it gains the commission's blessing, would be the first home of a former gangster that becomes protected for social reasons.
That's your history, and you want to remember all of it. You don't want to whitewash it and just remember the parts that you feel proud of.
The Philadelphia Inquirer's architecture critic, Inga Saffron.
I mean, I don't think preserving this house means that you're glorifying the mob. You're simply acknowledging this history that existed in Philadelphia.
Saffron says the home could maybe one day serve as a mafia museum.
That he lived no differently than, a carpenter or another working person. And yet he had this reputation of being so powerful. Just to see that house makes it so much more real.
Angelo Bruno was the boss of a gang that killed people.
The nomination gives author George Anastasia pause. He's written about the Philly Mafia for more than 40 years. He says the gentle touch myth of Angelo Bruno came about
only after he died, and because the guys that came after him were psychopathic murderers.
Whether the site of fame or infamy, Jeannie Bruno says she's been the homeskeeper for so long because the home is full of memories of her dad.
Nobody knows him like I do, He'd come home, he'd lie on the couch like this. He'd look at the wall, and he'd think. And I'd say, Daddy, what are you thinking? And he'd say, my thoughts are my own.
But she's finally ready to leave it behind. She's trying to sell the property and perhaps move to Florida. Since word spread about the home maybe becoming an official part of Philadelphia history, offers have been pouring in. The real estate agent with Keller Williams said he's fielded offers from Texas, China, and Sicily, though he wasn't at liberty to reveal the identity of the Italian bidder. The case for preservation will be made to the Historical Commission in March. For WHYY News.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.